The other day we talked about the full-blown velocity and accuracy mysteries I had going on with this Winchester Model 70 here, chambered in 270 Winchester. And a lot of y'all made some really great suggestions on things to check for it. It might be causing my issues. Well, a few of you suggested I check the bore. And I pulled out the Borescope and checked the bore out. And sure enough, I found the problems. And it's some pretty fascinating stuff, possibly with some really interesting implications. But before I show you exactly what we have here on the Borescope, I want to real quick go over the issues and concerns I had with it. And then when I show you the Borescope, it's all going to click and make sense then. For the accuracy part of this mystery, it's not that this rifle wouldn't shoot small groups. It would shoot some of the smallest groups I've ever seen. But it wouldn't repeat. All right, back in the late winter, early spring this year, I was doing some load testing, different powder, different bullet than I used last time. And I shot a 3-shot group that measured 180 thousandths of an inch. Really low standard deviation on velocities. I thought I found the load. I go back the next time to verify that load, and I got a 2-inch group. Okay, this last Saturday, I showed y'all the group I shot then. 4-shot group that measured 360 thousandths of an inch. It's a tiny group. I mean, I'm ecstatic, smiling from ear to ear, and I haven't gone back to try to verify that group. But I noticed my standard deviation on velocities were not good. They were running right at 29 standard deviation, which means I had a lot of variation in velocity for that group. That's not a good sign. Plus, that was my starting charge. Okay. What got me on that one is the very next group I shot. So the next increase in powder charge, a 1% increase in charge, which is not much. It went from a legitimate, one hole, 4-shot, dime-sized group to over 2 inches with just that slight change in powder charge. And I know that can happen. It could just be the load and this rifle. But that's what I kept saying last time. Okay, it's just this load. It just doesn't like this particular load. And I'm only on the second load. I know there's a lot of more testing I could do. That's not normal though to see groups just fall apart like that. And I'm not going from, a sub half MOA group to, 3/4 MOA or 1 MOA. I'm going from sub half MOA groups to over 2 MOA just like that. That's not normal. All right, and that was my big concern there, and the issues I had trying to get the loads repeating back in the springtime. So that's the accuracy mystery. Now for the velocity mystery. Earlier this year I carried this rifle out with a 1960 featherweight, also chambered in 270. That featherweight was faster in velocity than this rifle, and that featherweight has a 22-inch barrel. This 2013 Winchester Westerner has a 24-inch barrel. Okay, that's not a good sign. That 1960 featherweight should not have been faster than this rifle here. I'm sorry. But it was. Not a lot, but it was faster. Same ammunition from the same box, same day, same time. I thought it's just, okay, this is a new barrel. It's getting broke in. And it's not uncommon for new barrels to pick up 50, 70 feet per second after the first 100 or 200 rounds through it. Okay, I bought this rifle used, but I could tell it had had very few rounds fired through it, and I haven't fired that many through it myself, probably somewhere around 100 rounds for me. But just looking at the condition of the rifle, looking at the bolt face, looking at the muzzle, the bluing's still perfect on the muzzle on this rifle. So there haven't been that many rounds fired through it. I could tell that then. Again, I was just hoping, okay, we need to get some rounds through it, velocity will come up. It's not coming up. Okay, it could come up some more, but okay, so that's part of my issue, is it's slow. And a lot of you, I was really pleased to see so many of you say this. My first group last time was a tiny group. So many of you said, don't worry about the velocity, go with the accuracy. Okay, I agree 100% with that. I mean, completely agree with it. Accuracy trumps everything. Velocity, 100 feet per second, 200, 300 feet per second. Okay, 300 feet per second is starting to be a big deal, but I was averaging about 2,875 feet per second with this rifle with the starting load. I can hunt with that. It's not an issue. That's more than enough velocity. The issue for me was my max load last time was just over 3,000 feet a second. I think 3,033 was my highest velocity I saw. I should have been over 3,100 feet per second with that max load. So it, again, seems to be about 100 feet per second slow. Okay, well, again, accuracy trumps everything. I agree with that. I was proud of y'all for saying it. But y'all can't tell looking at this rifle, but this is a full-grown rifle here. This is a big rifle, and it's heavy. Okay, this one's got some weight to it. Well, that's what you want from a long-range precision rifle. Just the weight's going to help you shoot more accurately. And the longer barrel, which is where a lot of that weight's coming from, is this 24-inch barrel. That longer barrel's adding to the weight. But the primary purpose of that longer barrel is for velocity. Okay, so if I'm going to tote around this extra weight here, you know, to have a show enough accurate rifle, a long-range precision rifle, I want the velocity there also. Okay, so not having the velocity, but then still having all the weight and length, that kind of defeats the purpose. Especially when I could just carry that 1960 featherweight out there. It's a lot more fun carrying it than this, and it's higher velocity. So I agree definitely on the velocity, or the accuracy trumps everything, but that's the point of this rifle though, is to have the velocity. That's why I got it in a 270 Winchester with the 24-inch barrel. Okay, it's not a deal breaker, and if this was my only rifle, I wouldn't think a whole lot about it. This would, at 2875, would be an extremely versatile rifle. But again, for this particular one, I'm setting it up to be a long-range precision rifle, and I want that velocity. And normally I'm not obsessed with velocity. I'm really not. My FN and 30-06, I downloaded it to decrease the velocity. But for this one, I want it. Okay, and it should be producing it. That's the thing. Is something's not right if it's not producing that velocity that I want to see. And the other part that really got me last time, almost every shot I fired in my group, I could see the velocity increasing with each shot. Not every single time, but more often than not, my second shot would be faster than my first, my third faster than my second, my fourth faster than my third. And in all 5 groups I fired, the fourth shot was faster than the first shot in every group. Okay, so as this barrel was warming up and expanding, my velocities were coming up. Okay, something's going on there. Okay, and maybe that happens more often than I realized, and I just never paid it any attention before. But it was something that stood out for me on this rifle. And then you combine the slower velocities, the velocities increasing with each shot as the barrel warms up, the inconsistent velocities with the accuracy, and the accuracy issues I was having. Something just wasn't right. I mean, that's the conclusion I reached. And initially, the first time around, I thought it's the load. This past time with completely different powder and bullets and pretty much the same things. Something's not right here. Okay, well, that's where the borescope comes in. So let me pull out the borescope, and then all of a sudden this is all going to start making sense. All right, we're set up with the borescope now, and this is the chamber right here. Okay, so we start going in. This is where the shoulder starts. And I don't know what this little bit of roughness is in the metal, but anyway, it's there. But that's the shoulder. Now we're going into the throat. Okay, right here, this is where the bullet actually first makes contact with the lands and grooves. Okay, and this is what wears out on a barrel. Everybody thinks the whole barrel just wears, or a lot of people do, or I used to. This is what wears. Okay, this is your actual land right here. This is the part that sticks up and actually cuts into the bullet. So this is the groove on either side. You can see how it's starting to fade away right here. Well, this will eventually just wear out. And this rough section, it'll just keep going further and further down the barrel until your velocity just starts falling apart. Okay, this particular rifle, if we go in a circle here, we can see there's not a lot of wear on this one, believe it or not. This looks good for a rifle. Okay, so this bore is in good shape. But if we go down the barrel, and you can see carbon in there, you can see the dark places are carbon. Now you can see the copper built up on the lands. Okay, so we're going further and further down. You can see where things are turning. These dark places are copper right here. Excuse me, carbon. This is your groove. So this is the deep part of the bore. Land right here, you can see the patches of copper. And copper's fine, by the way. We'll talk about cleaning later. I want some copper on here. I want the copper to fill in those low spots and for it to reach an equilibrium. Okay, so everything's looking good. You know, it looks like a rifle barrel. It needs cleaning to knock out some of that copper, or excuse me, carbon, but that's okay. Now, this is the interesting part. Okay, we're almost to the muzzle. Notice how everything starts changing right here. Notice how we've got these circular carbon rings showing up. Notice we're not getting wear, even wear on each side from the bullet. And here we're exiting. Okay, I'm no expert with borescopes and looking at barrels, but I'm learning more quick. That bullet's not touching. Okay, and I'm certain these rings of carbon are from gas escaping and going around the bullet. The muzzle's oversized right here. That last, let's see how much we got here. Okay, so from right there, we're looking at about 2 inches. So if that's what it appears to be, the bullet's not touching the bore for the last 2 inches of this barrel. And gases are escaping and going by the bullet as it's reaching the muzzle. Okay, that's not good. I mean, seriously, that's not good at all. That explains why it's so picky as far as the accuracy. Okay, a muzzle is very important on the accuracy of a rifle, or the crown, and most of you know this, but when a bullet exits a barrel, okay, so when it exits the barrel, gas is going to escape in all directions, and you want the gas escaping evenly in all directions. Okay, well, with what we got here, I mean, the slightest little anything and changing harmonics or whatever, there's no telling, you know, what your gases are going to do and what kind of turbulence that's going to create on the bullet as it's exiting. So that's why, or at least appears to me, why it's going from, you know, just driving tacks, because I just hit that sweet spot and everything's perfect, to all of a sudden the slightest change, now we got turbulence or whatever, and we're going to 2-inch groups just like that. And it explains the velocity. I got a 24-inch barrel here, but it might as well be a 22, and there's no telling what's going on with that. Okay, but now here's the interesting part, or for me, what I'm finding fascinating. Okay, we know the muzzle on this rifle, if what I'm seeing here is what it appears to be, we know the muzzle's larger than the rest of the bore. Okay, but is the muzzle oversized or is the rest of the bore undersized? I think that's the $1,000,000 question. If the muzzle at that last 2 inches is oversized, well, then this just is what it is. If the rest of the barrel's undersized, which that kind of makes sense, with my velocities increasing as the barrel heats up. Okay, and this is getting into stuff here I'm not 100% on. But if this is slightly undersized, and we're talking tenths of a thousandths here. I mean, we're not talking much. I don't think it's going to take much at all to even that out. I don't think there's a lot of difference at all there. And I'm trying to figure out how to measure that accurately. I mean, I could do some kind of casting or something maybe, but I don't think that's going to be precise enough. I don't know. I'm digging into it. I've got a couple of friends I'm going to reach out to and talk to about this. They're pretty knowledgeable on such issues. But that would make sense for the rest of the barrel if it's on the small side to create drag on the bullet. As the barrel heats up, it's not getting as much drag. My velocities are coming up to what they should be or closer. They're increasing anyway. We could theoretically lap this barrel and remove just enough material through here to even that out. I think it would be driving tacks in and velocities would be perfect if this is on the low side. Okay, and now I'm fixing to do a whole lot of speculation here. I know slow barrels are a thing on rifles. Every manufacturer makes them, but it seems, you know, I'm seeing a lot more from one particular manufacturer right now. Not calling any names, but okay, we know it's a thing with barrels. Some are just slow. I'm thinking this is pretty common. This is the exact same thing we're seeing right here with it being larger at the muzzle. Okay, again, we're not talking much, just a little bit. Okay, and I think that explains why some barrels pick up speed, that 50 to 75 feet per second after 100 to 200 rounds. After that 100 or 200 rounds, does the bullet burnish the rest of the barrel, or the tighter spots just enough to start to make things even out? Because if this is a little small down here and the bullet's passing through this, okay, it's going to put more pressure on that bullet. It's going to make it a smaller size, so to speak. Okay, as it gets out here, the bullet's too small. Gas is escaping, going past it. It's losing pressure. Bullet exits the muzzle. Okay, as this part wears and that bullet's no longer being compressed to as small, and again, we're talking, you know, fractions of thousandths here. If those tighter spots wear just a little bit, and that bullet isn't quite as small, would it then everything reach an equilibrium as far as the inside bore dimensions, and then the bullet maintain pressure all the way out? That's a pretty good question. Okay, and just to take this a step further, barrel break-ins. That used to be a thing, now it's not. Maybe, you know, it's a fad that comes and goes. I used to be a big believer in breaking in barrels. I read an article years ago by Kenny Jarrett, and he described the process for doing that and why and so forth. And for any of you that don't know who Kenny Jarrett is, well, he's a fellow South Carolinian that happens to know a whole lot more about barrels and accuracy than I ever will. Go look up Jarrett rifles. And if you've ever heard the term a bean-filled rifle, that pretty much originated with him. I mean, he knows a thing or two about accuracy. Okay, I read an interview with him many years ago, and he described the process for breaking in a new barrel and why, and he recommended using JB bore cleaner. I've still got my original can. You use this stuff sparingly. And this can's probably, I don't know, 30 years old, 25 at least. Okay. Would breaking in this barrel, and the theory is you fire a shot, you clean the barrel, you fire a shot or two, you clean the barrel. Okay, and the reason for that is when you fire a shot, it puts copper down inside the barrel, and y'all saw the copper. Okay, you clean it and you remove that copper, then when you fire the next shot, your bullet's contacting steel rather than contacting the copper fouling you just laid down. Okay, well, if you fire multiple shots with the bullet just contacting the steel, then the bullet's going to want to burnish the steel, polish it, so to speak, because a copper-jacketed bullet's not going to remove steel. Steel's far tougher than copper ever thought about being. But it can polish it. Is that polishing just enough to even out those tighter spots? Not to mention the JB bore cleaner is an abrasive. And I just did some research, and this is suddenly all the rage these days. It's amazing how fads come and go. Brownells has got a special kit you can buy from them with this, and let's see, Kroll oil, penetrating oil to clean barrels. Everybody's wanting to, you know, completely shiny, no fouling whatsoever barrels now. It's a thing, I guess. But anyway, we'll talk about barrels and copper and fouling later. But okay, so this is suddenly popular again. This is an abrasive though, so it's actually creating a little wear when you use this on the inside of the bore. That's how it removes the copper. Does that little bit of wear combined with the polishing from the bullet, does it even all of this out? Okay, and I quit doing the break-in on new rifles because everybody's saying, well, you don't need to anymore because of the manufacturing processes now, hammer forged barrels and all that. Everything's so much more smoother. You don't have to worry about the tool marks and so on. You don't need to do it anymore. Okay, from what I'm seeing here, yeah, you still need to do it. I'm not impressed with hammer forged barrels at this point, not in the least. Everybody's doing it, except for Savage, by the way. Savage, we're going to give them their dues here. As far as I know, they're the only ones left not using hammer forged barrels. Okay, and I'm sure this happens. You know, I'm sure they have slow barrels also at times. Although Savages are generally famous for having faster barrels. Okay. Did the old break-in processes actually help minimize this? Assuming this is common, and I know slow barrels are common. Okay, and since I've got my chronograph, I'm seeing more and more and more of that, and I'm thinking they're really common. Did the old break-in processes help minimize the effects of this? And I'm really curious about that. And could, if I ran my old break-in process on this rifle, would that help minimize the effects of what we're seeing here and create a better seal all the way to the muzzle? Now, if only we could test that hypothesis. I feel an experiment coming on. All right, here's the problem though, as far as with an experiment. I can't do it anytime soon, or at least I don't think I'm going to be able to. I might accidentally have some time on my hand here shortly and be able to. Deer season's here. Okay, and that's why I was rushing with this. I wanted this ready for deer season. And I just did some scouting last week, and I found a few places I need a long-range precision rifle. Okay, so, and now, you know, to run an experiment on this, then go back and do my load testing, work up a load and all that stuff. And I mean, literally in 26 days and about 10 hours, I plan on being sitting up a tree somewhere waiting on a deer. So, and I know that sounds like a long time, 26 days, but that's one of my big issues personally for me has always been, I'm late for everything. I'm last minute. I was 20 minutes late for my own wedding. Seriously, I was. So I'm trying hard not to be that person anymore. I want this ready. I want to be out scouting right now. So if I get a chance, I'll play with it and we'll do a video on it. Otherwise, this is going to have to wait till about November, and then we're going to go back and we're going to test this. And, you know, we're going to try my old break-in process on this rifle. See if we can reach some kind of equilibrium on this bore. And maybe I can come up with something to measure the inside diameter of this bore also between then. And I mean something precision. Anyway, that's where we're at on this rifle, and because deer season's here, I did make a decision. I only have 2 long-range rifles. So this one's going on the back burner. Let me grab the other one real quick. Okay, this is my baby here. This is a Ruger number 1B chambered in 270 Winchester. And this is, at this point, my only long-range precision rifle, because unlike a rifle sitting on this table by another manufacturer that I shall not name, this one actually has the velocities it's supposed to. And while I've got the Borescope and all that good stuff out, I want to show y'all the difference between what we just saw in the Model 70 versus this number 1 here. Okay, so if we go to the muzzle on this one, okay, you can see the carbon marks. Those carbon marks go to the end of the barrel. And so we've got our grooves right here, and then we got our lands. And those carbon marks are clean to the end, just like they're supposed to be. They don't just suddenly end a couple of inches before the end of the barrel. Okay, and just to show y'all while we're set up here, the reason I got the Winchester Model 70 to start with, I wanted an extra long-range rifle. And you see we've got a little trash in there. It needs cleaning. A little rust starting to show up. You see the fouling. Okay, this rough area here on this rifle, right where the bullet contacts the lands and grooves, you can see this is starting to expand on this one versus that Model 70, which is a much newer rifle, fewer rounds. You can see the lands they're starting to disappear. Okay, they're eroding away. And that's what's going to happen as a barrel gets shot out. Okay, this number 1's not shot out. But this is a 45-year-old rifle, and it's getting long in the tooth. It's had some rounds through it. And this is not a rifle I want to be out there doing long-range target shooting and load testing and all that good stuff with. And these barrels, you don't just swap a barrel on a number 1 like you can a standard bolt action. So my whole reasoning for getting the Westerner was to have a long-range precision rifle that I could do, you know, long-range hunting with and target shooting and so forth, and not wear out this barrel doing all of that. So in this instance, though, I'm out of time and it's time to quit playing and experimenting, and I need a rifle that's going to work and shoot and have the velocities I want. And that Model 70, it would work and shoot, and I could kill deer with it. But again, I'm after something for extreme long-range shooting with this, and after some of the places I just scouted, I'm going to need something with some reach to it. I want the velocity. It's just, I'm going to need it this year. Deer season, it's coming up. I'm going to try to shoot a few scouting videos and, you know, that type of thing. And I'm going to try to do a few hunting videos. But I'm horrible out in the field shooting hunting videos. Bottom line, the other day when I was scouting, I started to do a video on scouting, and I wanted to explain to newer hunters about realistic expectations for, you know, deer on public land. That YouTube and Instagram, social media, you see all these monsters and they're everywhere and so forth. And I think it's created a lot of unrealistic expectations in young people, thinking that, you know, there's just one monster buck after another walking through the woods and on public land. And that's not the case. Problem is, when I was about just pulling out the camera, fixing to start saying, you know, you need to have realistic expectations, look down, oh look, there's a track from an absolutely world-class giant monster deer. I mean, what do you do at that point? Seriously, you're fixing to start filming a video explaining about having realistic expectations deer hunting on public land, and all of a sudden you're looking at a track from, you know, a once-in-a-lifetime buck. What do you do at that point? So anyway, I'm working on that, but if we can get the testing done, I'll show it. It's probably going to be November, though. I got a slap scope on here, get it zeroed and start back scouting. And we'll talk more about deer hunting here shortly. Maybe I can figure out how to make some of those videos work actually out in the field. So if any of you are having similar issues with slow velocities, maybe this is going to help you, and maybe this is going to shed some light on the old break-in procedures, and are they still relevant, and when we actually get to doing that. So make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell if you want to see how any of that turns out whenever in the future we get to it. And that's all I can tell you at this point. So, and if you got anything from this video, hey, please hit the like button. It helps out the channel and so forth. So I think that covered it on, you know, the velocity and accuracy mysteries. God bless, and have a good day.